How do I learn my purpose in life? How do I learn my purpose in life? Learn my purpose. What does God want for me? How can I fulfill my potential? How can I fulfill my potential? The Ifa model of consciousness fills gaps in Western models of self, higher self, God, and empowers living a life fully aligned with our higher self and spirit. The illusion of separation is stripped away, and the obvious truth becomes clear. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. ORI offers tools to incorporate these deep understandings into a balanced life filled with all the blessings that were intended for us from the womb. Joy, love, children, health, and wealth are our spiritual rights. Ifa sees these earthly blessings as symptoms of living in alignment with spirit. Living in alignment with spirit. Concept of ORI, the divine calabash of destiny, character and potential, seed of the Creator. Introduction. This is by no means a full comprehensive work, but merely a glimpse into the position of authority Ifa places on ORI, the divine spark of Olodumare within our lives. Enjoy. If one wanted to define one's ORI, it could be said to mean one's destiny, morality, or character. Destiny, morality, character, or character. It may be the potential in one's life or the potential to change one's situation in life. Or it could also be said to be one's personal God and the spark of Olodumare that resides within each of us all. Within each of us. ORI can be said to be the divinities that make us divine if we conduct ourselves in such a way that is befitting of such grandeur. So, ORI can be defined as all of the above and then more. ORI truly is multifarious in essence and by nature. Just as one cannot easily define or even comprehend Olodumare, it is equally difficult to understand the complex ideology of what is one's ORI. Let us try to shed some light on this topic. I will use certain standards of Ifa for better understanding and clarity on this subject as required. ORI is believed to be the most important Orisha of all, since ORI alone is responsible for changing the person. Every person has a piece of the divine essence, given to us by Olodumare. This piece is called ORI. This piece is called ORI. Obatala is said to form the human skeleton with his tools and the help of Ogun. Olodumare gives us his divine daughter, Imi, breath. Then, as said in Ifa Ogbeyonu, the person goes to the home of Ajala, a certain place in heaven, to select their ORI. It is Ajala shaping the life of head, or Ori-Inu, which can be formed very good or not, depending on the level of patience that will determine which head will be selected. To repair a badly damaged inner head This will require many sacrifices, ritual, and appeasement. The only divinity that can repair a damaged Ori is Orunmila, namely, during the process and messages of Isipaya, Esefa, and Itefa, and Ifa Ogunda Meji. Ifa teaches us that the only Orisha that can follow its devotee all the days until the last day is one's Ori. No other Orisha can do this. We share all the other Orisha. It is Ori that can bless a person quickly. Ori is your dynamic force or potential, natural qualities, and strength of your character, which can impact public image and boost popularity, plus many other important human endeavors. Ori is the divinity of full possibility, and the other Orisha merely help bring this potential into fruition. This is where the Ifa concepts of Ayanmo, Akunleyan, and Akunlegba come into play within one's life potential and what we regard as one's destiny. I will try to briefly explain all three. Ayanmo is aspects of self that are fixed, don't change, and remain permanently. They are gender, race, family, and natural roles we must do as that person in physical manifestation, etc. Akunleyan is essentially virtues and values chosen by the person in heaven. They form likes and dislikes, taboos, and similar. Akunlegba is the additives to one's chosen virtues, which are given by various Erulmole in the inner realm of heaven called Onibode, and happen during the mid-later stages of pregnancy. This is where one's complementing Orisha are assigned to assist one in completing one's task here on earth. Upon coming to earth, birthing, most if not all of this recorded information is forgotten or unlearned, while a growing infant is getting corrupted by outside ideas based on ignorance. This is where the position of Ifa comes into play and states the importance of Awo performing essentiae, first rites for newborns done very early in life, receiving Esefa, one hand of Ifa, and divination from time to time, using Ikin, Opele, and Karishes to know the message of Ifa in order to stay on course or come out better by avoidance of pitfalls. This is where the system called Ifa prevails by giving both the compass and the map. By performing the Esipje and Esefa rites, we are helping the parents to mold and shape the life of the child to attain, repair, and in certain cases outperform potential in life by guiding using a proactive approach of specific advice, clear directives, ideal environment, and anticipated outcome. Ori is for everyone. And a major Orisha we all ought to appease and venerate often. In fact, it is our Ori we should be going to first before any Orisha. This is what Ifa teaches us. When we consult with our Ifa, it is Orunmila who advises us of the true intent of one's Ori. That is why Orunmila has a more in-depth connection with the person coming for divination and will reveal all clearly. If Ifa consults the Ipan Ori or Ipanri of the person who resides in heaven and known as the Inikiji or counterpart of its double on earth, which is our ORI-APEERE, which resides within us. Which resides within us. Ifa consults the ipanori or ipanri of a person, since only Onumila is a Leri Ipin, witness of creation / destiny, who resides in heaven and known as the Inikechi, counterpart of its double on earth, which is our Oru-Inu, which resides within us. There are often concerns on the matter of why some people, even along with rituals and many sacrifices and going through many rites, end up with persisting problems. This again is due to the lack of dealing with the various aspects of one's Ori. Gentle character it is, which enables the rope of life to remain undamaged in one's hand. These were the Babalawo that cast Ifa for Orunmila, who by means of his gentle character was going to win the rope of life from the other 400 plus one Orisha, Ifa Owanrin and many more other Ifa stanzas. The Ifa concept of Ipako, balance between head and heart, balance between head and heart, Ipako. By Baba Awo Falokun Patumbi, the master teacher. The Ipako is located at the base of the skull where the head joins the neck. The head joins the neck. Ipako literally means don't decapitate. Or in other terms, do not block access to the head. In the diaspora, this power center is often referred to as Eshu Nibako. The neck links the head to the body and the mind to the heart. If there is no alignment between head and heart, there is no access to elevated levels of consciousness. The ability of the Ori to receive the Ashe of Orisha is a function of the inner resonance of the Ori itself. The ability of the Ori to receive the Ashe of Orisha is in other words, the Ashe of a particular Orisha that exists in the consciousness of a particular individual can attract the Ashe of the same Orisha as it exists in the world. This can occur as a visionary experience, a trance possession, or as a strong intuition. One is not regarded as better than another, they simply have different ritual functions. In the language of psychology, there is a right brain, left brain, polarity, and human consciousness. Right brain is emotional, intuitive, and empathetic, while the left brain is objective, rational, and analytical. The right brain is emotional, intuitive, and empathetic, while the left brain is objective, rational, and analytical. Ifa describes this relationship as the polarity between Ori, head, and Egbe, heart. If you place a mandala around the head and the heart, the spine and the shoulders form a cross, dividing the circle into quadrants. The center point of the circle is Ipako, loosely translated to mean don't cut off the head or don't block access to the head. I interpret Ipako to be the symbolic location of Yangji, meaning the crossroad. In Ifa cosmology, Yangji is the place where three roads intersect. It is the home of Eshu, the divine messenger. The three roads of Yanji are not located on a flat, one-dimensional surface. Imagine a sphere with a cross through the center at the equator. Imagine a third line passing through the center of the equator from both poles. The two roads at the equator symbolize balance between the head and the heart. The road through the poles symbolizes connection to spirit. Ifa describes Eshu as living at the crossroads. Eshu exists as a force in nature. Access to Eshu exists in latent potential within the individual dimension accessible through Ipako. Ifa oral scripture describes Eshu as the doorkeeper. Eshu stands at the door leading to the road that links Ara, Egbe, Ori-Inu, and Ipanri. Eshu is further described as the divine messenger, the spirit with the Ashe, to translate the language of Orisha, nature, into the language of humans. This is a symbolic reference to the ability of Ipanru to access information from outside the direct experience of Ori. This is a key point in understanding the Ifa concept of personal transformation. This is a key point in understanding the Ifa concept of personal transformation. It is not just about resolving personal conflicts. It is about resolving personal conflicts and learning how to live in harmony with invisible forces that shape and guide the destiny of the entire planet.
When personal desires are elevated to the status of a message from spirit. We are not invoking communication with spirit. We are invoking an encounter with Eshu, the spirit of the trickster.
The higher self. The Ifa concept of Ipanri. The Ifa concept of the higher self. The Yoruba word Ipanri does not translate easily into English. The elision would be Ipo Ori, with the N or N used as transition between the double O sounds in the spoken language. Ipo means big toe, and Ori means head. The combination of these two words suggests the idea of the total self, everything from head to toe. There is also a deeper metaphysical inference from the conjunction of both words. In Ifa ritual, the big toe is considered the place where the individual is linked to the consciousness of the ancestors. The word Ipanri is used in Ifa to refer to our invisible counterpart living in the realm of the ancestors. In Ifa, self-perception is informed by transcendent sources of illumination that cannot be tracked directly back to personal experience. In simple terms, the human spirit is linked to a range of spiritual beings, and together they guide and inform the Ipanri. Consciousness is a house with many rooms, and each room has its own source of illumination, and the key point here is that access to each of these rooms is coded into the nature of personal consciousness. Self-perception. In other words, there is no there out there. Consciousness is a projection of God's will on the physical world, which is then fed back to us in the form of our visual interpretations of physical reality. The evidence of the influence of spiritual beings on human life is evident to anyone who does not resist the idea. You can feel their presence. At times you catch a glimpse of them out of the corner of your eye. Occasionally they warn you of danger, leaving no doubt they are real. The prevalent Western dogma on this subject is that all manifestations of spirit are evil except angels, who are generally described as ancestral spirits with a specific set of dogmatic beliefs. In contrast, Ifa cosmology is based on the observation that everything in nature is endowed with consciousness or spirit. Talk to any fireman who has faced a wall of flames and ask him if he thinks fire is self-directed. Forces in nature have their own unique form of consciousness, and understanding these various expressions of spirit gives us a sense of our relationship with the world around us. The significant point is that consciousness, called Allah in Yoruba language, creates reality. And because Allah emerges from a single source, everything in nature is interconnected and capable of interdimensional communication. I've been to the ocean and felt the nurturing spirit of salt water bring resolution to an inner conflict. Without water, there is no life. The universe is filled with hydrogen. Water is a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. A planet needs water to form oxygen. But water is made from oxygen. How does this happen? It is Awo, secret, meaning the heart of mystery of the seven seas. I address the ocean using the Yoruba word Olukun, but I don't believe the inner spirit of the ocean is African, European, Asian, Christian, Buddhist, or Hindu. The consciousness of a force in nature predates human evolution and predates all culture. The ocean was here before we gave her a name. The study of Ifa is a study of the collective wisdom of Yoruba ancestors and their effort to understand and explain the mysteries around it. Any spiritual study of cosmology projects onto nature the characteristics of human interaction, because that is our most immediate frame of reference. I can say lightning is more dangerous than thunder. I can also say Shango, the spirit of lightning, carries a metal sword, and Oya, the spirit of thunder and wind, carries a wooden sword. I am still saying the same thing, simply using a different set of symbols to refer to a deeper mystery. The pulling together of hydrogen and oxygen to form water is a contractive process. Contractive forces in nature are typically described as being feminine. The gender reference is symbolic and does not mean the ocean has the personality of a particular woman. The ocean is a self-regulating biosystem capable of reacting in response to pollution and changing weather patterns based on the intention of preserving life on the planet. This ability is reflective of the consciousness of the ocean. And is clear evidence the ocean is engaged in some form of self-preservation based on internal self-regulation. We will never fully understand her spirit. We just get glimpses of her depth by observing her behavior. If our observations are accurate, we can use the information to live in harmony with the world. For example, whales periodically go to the ground when they are sick so that they do not infect the rest of the pod. When well-meaning conservationists drag the whale back to the water, they are failing to appreciate the consciousness of the whale and failing to consider the possibility that the whale might have a better understanding of the spirit of the ocean than humans. people represent the highest form of consciousness on the planet is a clear expression of dogma based on assumptions. Dogma is the arrogant belief that humans are capable of knowing the will of God. Is an arrogant belief that humans are capable of knowing the will of God. Ifa postulates no dogma because our Ifa ancestors understood the value of humility. Maladoma Somé, a diviner from Burkina Faso, says rocks are the highest form of consciousness on the planet because rocks never tried to be anything except rocks. The Ipanri is part of Tikara Ini, the Yoruba word for self. The Ipanri is part of Tikara Ini, the Yoruba word for self. The word is an elision of Ti, Ikar, Ara, Ini, meaning one who surrounds the physical body. One who surrounds the physical body. In Ifa, the body is described as a calabash holding the head and the heart. Ifa teaches that both thoughts and emotions must be aligned if life is to prosper. Once this alignment occurs, the total self has access to spiritual power called Ashe. When the self has access to Ashe, it can be used to create alignment with Igun and Orisha, meaning connection to sources of illumination beyond individual personal experience. Ifa teaches that alignment with Igun and Orisha is only possible if there is alignment between the physical Ara, emotional Egbe, and the spiritual self, Ipanri. The purpose of Ifa spiritual discipline and Ifa divination is to provide guidance for creating and sustaining this alignment. Ifa teaches that living in harmony with nature unlocks the hidden potential of self and world. The belief that a person can control nature is a reflection of the dogmatic belief that it is possible to know the will of God. Those who try to control nature are inviting a disruptive encounter with Eshu, the divine trickster. I have seen my teachers alter the weather. They were not making a demand, they were making a request. There's a difference. Anything human has boundaries that are inevitably smaller than the boundaries of any given force in nature. Odu Ifa says that it is not possible to catch the wind in a basket. On the other hand, you might discover you can communicate with the spirits of the wind and ask for her guidance. Traditional Yoruba hunters tell me spirits travel from the forest by riding the wind. If you are in the rainforest and there is a sudden gust of wind, every animal stops and listens. The environment has shifted and they are taking note. I have been to the bend in the Oshun River where the spirit of abundance makes her annual appearance. When the elder mothers of the temple pray at that spot, the crickets go silent. This doesn't happen gradually. They all stop at once. It is an example of nature responding to human speech. The Ifa paradigm of Iponri is an expression of what could be called paleophysics, or the ancient scientific study of natural phenomena. Western academia is generally dismissive of indigenous African systems of science based on the elitist notion that abstract thought was invented of Greek culture. Eurocentric worldview ignores the perspective of the early Greek philosophers who openly admitted to have been initiated into Egyptian mystery school. Philosophy is the child. Philosophy is the child of Africa, not some superstitious cousin. The book Black Athena, The Afro-Asiatic Roots of Classical Civilization, The Fabrication of Ancient Greece by Martin Banal, traces the academic dismissal of the cultural ties between Greece and Egypt based on political rather than historical grounds. In academia, the book is controversial, but it is well documented and compelling. Banal's linguistic analysis suggests that Greece was originally founded as a colony of Egypt. This author's ancestors comes from Transylvania. The area is rich in tin. The oral history of his culture says the original settlers came to the region from Africa as hunters and eventually built a mining colony. The oldest examples of written language in all of Europe come from the region now called Transylvania. The samples are 10,000 years old. They are so much older than anything else, they are simply ignored by anthropologists because they don't fit the academically accepted timeline. During the Middle Ages, Transylvania was one of the few places in Europe where Catholicism, Eastern Orthodox, and Islam coexisted. European religious dogma from other regions during that era demonized anyone with an alternative worldview. To this day, the effects of dogma associate Transylvania with vampires, dragons, and witches. It is the same dogma that causes people to assume Ifa is about sticking pins in dolls. Sticking pins in dolls. Having studied various schools of psychology as well as African forms of healing, he is of the opinion that the Ifa concept of human spirit is far more complete and far more sophisticated than the paradigms generally taught in Western universities. The basis for this author's opinion is that Ifa includes a sophisticated analysis of invisible forces that influence human behavior. These influences are addressed in some schools of transpersonal psychology without the sophisticated rituals used in Ifa to reveal the mysteries of spirit, and without any methodology for communication with spirit. Psychology generally fails to acknowledge the value of communication with spirit and considers the manifestation of this phenomenon to be a projection of the imagination. In Brother Awo's experience, imagination can be used as a bridge between self-generated images and real messages from spirit. Anyone can imagine sitting and talking with a deceased relative. If your imagination is strong enough, the image will start to feel real. At some point, rather than putting words into the mouth of the image, the projection will begin to take on a life of its own, speaking words that are independent of your own thoughts. This is the crossover point. Visualization can be part of the invocation process. A fundamental ingredient in effective communication with spirit is to recognize the shift. Confusing imagination with the message from spirit is an invitation for the encounter with the Eshu, the trickster. That encounter can be described as a train wreck waiting to happen. It will destroy all of your preconceived notion about self and the world. Recognize the shift. In the realm of spirit, that is the first step on the path of enlightenment. For anyone who has never spoken to an ancestor, the idea might seem strange, influenced by more Hollywood images of ghosts than real understanding of spirit. If you can't imagine it, you can't create it. If you assume the experience will be positive, that too becomes a part of the invocation process. Imagination is always the first step in the journey towards manifestation. Imagination is always the first step in the journey towards manifestation. There is a good historical evidence to suggest that African study of consciousness is at least 5,000 years old, if not much older. 5,000 years old, if not much older. The Western scientific study of mind is approximately 100 and 20 years old. Proof of the antiquity of the African model can be found in the Egyptian temple text commonly referred to as the Book of the Dead. Anyone familiar with African forms of initiation will recognize many of the texts as descriptions of altered states of consciousness invoked during rituals of transformation. My contention is that no worldview survives from antiquity into the present era that has no practical value. In any rural environment, any belief that does not conform to reality has deadly consequences. Nature is an unforgiving teacher. When the hunters of Arojinle are ready to learn their trade, they go on what I would call an extended vision quest. They spend time living in the forest, carrying only the barest essentials. The hunters worship Ogun, the spirit of iron, and also Osi, the spirit of the tracker. When they want to learn the skills needed to hunt, it is Oya, the spirit of the wind, they turn to for guidance. Oya is the guardian of the portal between worlds. Oya is the guardian of the portal between worlds. By placing their Ipanri in alignment with the wind, hunters can project their consciousness into an animal and see the world from the animal's perspective. Skilled hunters can see through their own eyes and the eyes of an animal simultaneously. They become Ori-APEERE, meaning two-headed. In my experience, the best way to grasp the Ifa concept of Ipanri is to break it down into components, into component parts. My suggestions to those who are interested in learning the material in this book is to study it in segments. In the West, our conditioning to a consumer-oriented, self-serving worldview makes it difficult to stand outside of culturally supported dogma to consider an alternative vision of reality. There are those who would argue it is not possible. I do know, for me personally, there has been tremendous value gained as a result of making the effort. Inner self, or Ori-Inu, Ori-Inu, the inner self, the Ifa concept, of inner self, of the inner self, Ori-Inu. Ori is the mystery of consciousness, and Ori-Inu is a mystery within a mystery. It is the invisible self within the self. Or, to use the Yoruba description, it is the self that dances in front of the mat. In this context, the mat is a symbol of the unity of all creation. Ifa teaches that even after we have accessed the center point of our being, the source of individual consciousness, there is a deeper inner layer that remains elusive and unknowable, because it is the source of knowing. There is yet a deeper inner layer, unknowable. It is one of the goals of various Ifa and Orisha initiations to reveal the Ori-Inu to the Ori. This part of the initiation process is symbolized by Oshun's mirror. The Ashe, spiritual power used to invoke self-illumination. It is also the reason for the taboo against Ayawo's, the newly initiated, looking into mirrors. Once you have seen yourself fully, you run the risk of losing yourself in a mirror. You run the risk of losing yourself in a mirror until the inner self is easily accessible. The ancient sages of Ifa made a thorough analysis of the elements that form the total self. They have distinguished between the elements that unite to form the Ori-Inu, including Atari, Ipako, Ipari-Inu, ORI-APEERE, Akunlegba, and Ayanmo. A study of these components and their functions provides a key to understanding the link between the consciousness of the individual and the consciousness of spirit. Ifa concept of conscience. The Ifa concept of conscience, Apara Inu. Apari Inu is made up of the words Apa, meaning mark or sign, and the word Ori, meaning consciousness, and the word Inu, meaning inner. Apari Inu is made up of the words Apa, meaning mark or sign, the word Ori, meaning consciousness, and the word Inu, meaning inner. The clearest English translation would be the mark of the inner self. This is a reference to the internal disposition towards the process of building character. Ifa teaches that some Ori come into the world with the disposition towards developing good character, and some Ori come into the world unable to easily grasp the importance of developing good character. This is not the same thing as the idea of a bad Ori or an Ori rooted in negativity. Those who can source the need to build good character through their own internal resources develop what is called Okan, meaning witness the heart. In the language of Ifa, to witness the heart is to have a good conscience, to speak the truth, and to hold your truth in the world. Those who have difficulties accessing Okan, witness the heart, are given guidance and ritual cleansings to develop this awareness. The key to accessing Okan is the ability to understand the function of anger. In my experience, this is the single most difficult lesson to learn and to teach. In Western culture, it is assumed that anger is the result of being treated unfairly. It can have that component, but the deeper truth is that anger is triggered when we see another person behaving in a way that reflects our own internal contradiction. In simple terms, we are what we resist. The common reaction to this statement is that I am angry and my anger is justified. It's all about them and not me. In traditional Yoruba culture, there is a great emphasis placed on the idea of Ori-Tutu, meaning cool head. The ideal of a cool head means There is a positive value in not acting out of anger and not arbitrarily expressing anger every time you feel it. This does not mean we do not express anger or that we keep those feelings locked inside. One of the functions of a men's society and of a women's society is to provide a safe place among supportive peers to vent anger in a way that has no destructive social consequence. Once the anger has been released, it is possible to make an objective analysis of what in the person made you angry that remains unresolved in yourself. This is called taking responsibility for your contribution to the problem. After that issue has been examined, it is possible to consider the question of unfair treatment by the other person. By going through this process, we have a better chance of actually fixing a given problem because we have first examined and altered the only issue we have real control over, and that is our participation in the conflict. If we process anger in a group setting, it's absolutely imperative that the words spoken in anger remain in the group and never become fuel for gossip. If any group is plagued by gossip, it loses the ability to effectively discharge anger in a safe environment. Anyone who has benefited from this kind of support will know how important it is and will understand fully the reason for the taboo on gossip. I am not saying that the very real issues of racism and sexism and capitalism do not invoke legitimate reasons of anger and resentment. I am saying effective strategies for dealing with these issues are more easily accessible from a position of ORI-APEERE. In addition, I am not saying that children who are angry about childhood abuse are responsible for their own abuse. As children, we are dependent on adults for security and protection. When that security is violated, it is always the responsibility of the caregiver. An adult who has suffered childhood abuse does have a responsibility to find healing and move past the wound. At times, the anger of such a person is rooted in the inability to accept responsibility for finding an effective path towards cleansing away the effects caused by a violation of trust. Reflections about Ifa definition of destiny. Reflections about the Ifa definition of destiny. When we deal with Ifa, we have always to deal with the background of what destiny is and how it may manifest in its various shapes and forms, which are indicated by the different definitions that come out from Ifa philosophy. Ifa says we chose a part of our destiny in Orun after Ajala molded Ori. Akunleyan comes with us because we are able to interact with our spiritual needs in Orun, that is before we are born. However, this is not the only and unique part of Akunleyan. In fact, it is said our Ori, apparently perfect in heaven, may show its non-apparent defects during the travel from Orun to Aye and consolidate them. This statement has a high metaphorical value which goes ahead of metaphysical consideration. Unconscious and conscious mind and reasoning are evocated and invocated, alluding to their mutual interaction. Unconscious mind, Orun, is perfect, but the intervention of logic reasoning can create more or less severe imperfections in the form of false beliefs, preconcepts, means, coming from educational, social, family background, and their mental representation. That is the reason why someone may think Akunleyan is not changeable. Is not changeable. Is not changeable. That is the most vigorous mistake Ifa philosophers may do, because in fact Ifa affirms exactly the contrary. This affirmation is contained entirely inside the mechanism of presupposition. It is presupposed that if something damages during a particular event, it may be also restored out of the possibility of irreversible damage, so-called ORI-APEERE. Ifa says by implication that our destiny is forcibly imperfect because we have to afford a travel from heaven to earth, and this travel realizes during every moment of our life. During every moment of our life. However, we may and we must repair these imperfections that come to surface during this travel. That is, we must use our inner mind to modify errors and imperfections of our logic mind, making her able to go through the main enemies of life, what Ifa wisdom defines elinini. Elinini are the psychological and spiritual enemies which come out from logic. Which come out from logic and sometimes analogic. In this case, the error is already in Orun from our Ori activity. That is, we must use our inner mind to modify errors and imperfections of our logic mind, making her able to go through the main enemies of life, what Ifa wisdom defines elinini. Elinini are the psychological and spiritual enemies, which come out from logic and sometimes analogic. In this case, the error is already in our room from our Ori activity. Elinini can reach physical life in form of disease and symptoms when we are not able to repair Ori. Ifa suggests also the way we can repair Ori. That is Ebo. The term Ebo or Ebo is sometimes translated as sacrifice. The word sacrifice, however, mainly refers to personal, spiritual, and psychological sacrifice, which implicates the necessity of change. In fact, Ebo was the personal or ritual sacrifice made to favor change. It is through change we can mold out our life and our destiny in order to overcome the imperfections that inevitably the passage from Orun to Aye determines. The value of change is something that resides over the fundamentals of Ifa. Iwa-APEERE may only be reached through change. All the path of Iwa character is the research for Iwa-APEERE, good character or gentle character. It presupposes one has to change starting from imperfection and going to perfection. All the path of Iwa is the research for Iwa-APEERE. It presupposes one has to change starting from imperfection and going to perfection. Summing up, Akunleyun has different meanings and levels. Like an onion, metaphysical, spiritual and psychological and physical. Each of us should reflect upon each of these values in order to shape his or her life the best way to process the complex and individual path to good character. Akunleyin refers to things we chose to become in the world. Akunlegba refers to how we want to do that. The way how we want to process our destiny and the way we want to change is another important part. I would like to highlight the root legba. Eshu is our inner force gradient. The force, the impulse up our external life, what Freud would have called libido. And this particular form of choice refers, at least in part, to that. It comes up from the discrepancies of Orun and Aye, from unconscious to conscious, that is, from the imperfections and errors that characterize the constitution of these two instances. Paradoxically, Ifa says the inner force to go ahead and realize our best destiny comes from the differences between logic and analogic minds, between spirit and matter, between ideal and concrete images. We rest on paradox, Ifa says, and through this paradox, we can deambulate. By implication, Ifa says also this paradox cannot go above certain limits to a territory where we would break the balance. Ifa is in fact balance, but this balance is not absolute. There always must be present a certain degree of imbalance to justify the balance, or better, to allow the movement of balance. Furthermore, every time we reach a balance, we must search for a new imbalance in order to renovate our progression to change. Ifa is change. Change requires a force gradient. It cannot go above certain limits to avoid irreversible or reversible damages. This gradient comes from the psychospiritual difference between Orun and Aye, logic and analogic life. This gradient is the necessary imbalance to reach a new balance. Akunleyan. The Ifa concept of choice. The Ifa concept of choice. Akunleyan is the part of the individual destiny that is created by individual choice. This would be comparable to what is known in Western philosophy as free will. In Ifa metaphysics, free will includes both those choices made during a lifetime and those choices that are made between successive reincarnations, Atunwa. As life progresses, the Ori is affected by elements of destiny that are predetermined and elements of destiny that result from free will. We choose a destiny, and we can choose to ignore it. The more an individual ignores their destiny or their chosen destiny, the harder it becomes to bring the chosen destiny into manifestation. The Ifa concept of free will. Akunlegba. The Ifa concept of free will. Akunlegba are those elements of personal destiny that change as a result of choices made through free will. Personal destiny. This concept suggests that some choices that are made in the course of a lifetime can either limit or expand the choices that become available from that point on. For example, the decision not to learn to read will limit the future flow of information that is available to a given individual. If that person has chosen a destiny as a writer, the decision not to learn to read eliminates the possibility of actualizing their inherent potential. Okan. Ayanmo, the Ifa concept of predetermination. Ayanmo, predetermination. Ayanmo is the aspect of destiny that cannot be altered or reversed. Within Ifa metaphysics, the most significant aspect of Ayanmo would be the predetermined time of death. Ifa teaches that this date cannot be extended, but through poor choices, this day can come prematurely. In very simple terms, the concept of Ayanmo suggests that each person has a range of potential in given areas that cannot be extended beyond a certain point. Given the nature of destiny, as described by Ifa, it is possible to have a positive destiny that becomes disrupted by poor character development. Ifa teaches that the avoidance of the development of good character can lead to a diminishment of personal potential. Atunwa. The Ifa concept of the rebirth of character. Atunwa. The Yoruba word Atunwa is an elision of Atunbi Iwa, meaning the regeneration of character. In Ifa, the word Atunwa is used to describe what Eastern mysticism calls reincarnation. In many Eastern religious traditions, reincarnation is defined as the continuous rebirth of the soul. The Ifa concept of Atunwa is a similar belief based on the notion that the human spirit usually reincarnates within a single family lineage. One of the questions asked at an Ifa naming ceremony is whether the child comes from the lineage of the father or the mother. In some cases, divination indicates the child is directly from Orisha, which I interpret to mean that the infant incarnates a new soul unconnected to either lineage. It is significant that the Yoruba word for reincarnation makes use of the suffix Iwa. Ifa teaches that as the spirit of the individual evolves, so does the spirit of the family. This means that the Ifa concept of character is associated with both personal transformation and development related to communal responsibility. According to Ifa, there can be no personal growth at the expense of others. And when anyone in the extended family fails to exhibit good character, the entire family shares responsibility for the consequences. When someone in an Ifa community exhibits poor character, an elder will invariably ask the person to identify their parents because the problem is considered a collective failure. In turn, fixing the problem becomes a communal responsibility. In metaphysical terms, the concept of Atuma is at the foundation of the Ifa concept of Ipanri, the organization principle that creates human consciousness. Ori is linked with the organization principle that creates all forms of consciousness. When this link is grasped through mystic vision, when this link is grasped through mystic vision, the Ori begins to see the relationship between self and higher self, or self and full potential. The content of this vision is the awareness that the Ipanri remains in existence throughout the life of the visible world. ORI-APEERE, the Ifa concept of perfection. The Ifa concept of perfection. Ifa scripture describes human potential by saying Ori lo kowon le APEERE, meaning only the self reaches the state of perfection. The suggestion here is that the Ori continues to develop until it reaches APEERE, which is the Yoruba word for both completion and perfection. According to Ifa scripture, those who reach APEERE live in a sacred city of Ile-Ife that exists in the center of the invisible realm called Orun. Those who seek APEERE are guided by the Ifa concept of good character. Ifa scripture is clear that good character will bring a blessing of children, abundance, and long life. But good character is not measured by external blessings. Good character is an internal process. Judged by behavior in each moment. Good character can never be fully defined or clearly delineated, because to do so would be to fall in the trap of creating dogma. The process of finding perfection is reflected in the Ori-key for Ella, the spirit of purity, who guided the historical prophet Orunmila. The Ori-key says, Spirit of purity, child of the offspring of the stone and the water, we become pure. Child of the offspring of the stone and the water, we become pure. The stone that gave birth to the spirit of purity will never die. The spirit of purity has descended to earth. We no longer die. The spirit of purity showed us the road to salvation. We make offerings to show our appreciation. The spirit of purity has no substance. The spirit of purity is too small to be thought of. Yet the spirit of purity delivered the immortals from all trouble. To know purity is to be saved. Spirit of purity, bless the sacrifice I make to open my way. Spirit of purity, bless the sacrifice that brings life. Spirit of purity, bless the sacrifice that brings abundance. This Ori-key is not asking me as an Ifa devotee to believe anything. The prayer and praise of the spirit of purity is telling me perfection is an achievable goal. It is saying that life does not end with physical death. It is saying that if I make offerings from a place of purity in my prayers, or rather, of purity, my prayers will be answered. To me, this is the single most important point with regard to the practice of Ifa. My teachers in Ode Remo say, if you make an offering of water, you will receive a blessing of peace. If you make an offering of water, you will receive a blessing of peace. They also say, if you cannot afford to make an elaborate offering, make an offering with dirt and pray with a pure heart. If you do that, your prayers will be answered. If a person prays from a place of ibi, the prayer will only solidify the ibi. The prayer will only solidify the ibi. By that I mean if you pray for what you want instead of what you need, you will never receive what you need. And if you don't know what you need, ask Spirit to guide you. If you continually pray for something that you want, and the answer is consistently no, Spirit is trying to tell you something. Don't waste time looking for stronger juju or a better diviner. Your lessons are all around you. Look in the mirror, grab yourself by the lapels, and look yourself in the eye. If something isn't working, it wasn't meant to be. If you are angry, disappointed, or jealous, you have lost faith in the inherent abundance of the universe. You have lost faith in the inherent abundance of the universe. In my travels, I see way too much argument over the best way to do things. Ritual is a set of learned behaviors used to focus your attention. The Ipanri does the real work. Every lineage develops ritual patterns that allow a ceremony to function on automatic pilot, while the Ipanri is free to explore the real issues in the invisible realm. If one person prays while in alignment with their Ipanri, the prayers will be heard. The prayers will be heard. If two people join hands and pray, and their Ipanri become linked, the prayers are not twice as strong. They are 10 times as strong. They are 10 times as strong. If two people join hands and pray, and their Ipanri become linked, the prayers are not twice as strong, they are 10 times as strong. If a dozen people come together from a place of purity, you can access the Ashe to perform miracles. But if a dozen people come together to pray, and 11 of them are in their center, and one of them is in a place of conflict, dogma, and ibi, the power of the collective prayers will be diminished. It is possible for one person to disrupt the power of prayer for a very large people. It is possible for one person to disrupt the power of prayer for a very large group. If you are an elder, if you are doing work for someone else, if you can't find your center, don't do the work. It is possible for one person to disrupt the power of prayer for a very large group. I like to say an initiation is like a wedding. If you're not the bride, leave your baggage at the door. If you can't get your stuff out of the way, you have a spiritual responsibility to move yourself out of the way. In this brother's earlier books, it was critical of the integration of Catholic and Yoruba religious ideas in some forms of Orisha worship in the diaspora. Those statements were an expression of his dogma. Catholic images don't work well for him, and so what? In terms of the ability of some elders to use these images to support effective prayer and effective healing, his difficulty means nothing. If you are a Catholic, or if you are using Catholic icons to represent Orisha, and you invite him to come to pray, it is not his job to change a ritual process. It is this brother's job to overcome the limitation of his dogma so that we can all join in effective prayer. If you come to me and you ask me to pray, I might want to show you my ritual process, but I do that only to make it easier for me to rise above the process and to let my Ipanri do the work. There is no correct way to pray. There is no correct way to pray. There are only effective prayers. Ifa teaches that effective prayer comes only after you get yourself out of the way. That means I can't pray effectively to ask for what I want. I can only pray effectively for what I need. If I persist in praying for what I want, I am only solidifying my Ibi and intensifying the disastrous consequences that will come on the day I greet my Ibi in the street. There is only one question to take to Ifa divination. Am I on my path of destiny? If not, how do I get there? Am I on my path of destiny? Am I on my path of destiny? If not, how do I get there? How do I get there? Ayanmo Ipin, the Ifa concept of destiny. The Ifa concept of destiny. Ayanmo Ipin, the Ifa concept of destiny. Ayanmo Ipin. At the core of Ifa spiritual discipline is the belief that each person chooses their destiny as preparation for coming to the world between stages of reincarnation. Atunma. The Yoruba phrase Ayanmo Ipin is usually translated to mean destiny. Destiny is usually translated to mean destiny. This translation misses the deeper esoteric implications of the Eliasan Ayanmo Ipin, meaning my sacred ancestral tree is divided. My sacred ancestral tree is divided. I interpret this as a poetic reference to the interconnection of all creation. The word Ipin may mean either division or can be a reference to the spiritual power that flows from the eyes when a person is in possession. When possession occurs, there is a distinct physical transformation that manifests in the eyes. It is taboo to look directly into the eyes of a medium because the eyes have the ability to cause possession in the uninitiated. Because the word for destiny is associated with these phenomena. Ayanmo Ipin. Because the word for destiny, Ayanmo Ipin. The word for destiny is associated with these phenomena. There is a clear suggestion that destiny includes some level of direct alignment with the Orisha that incarnates a particular person's Ori. There is a clear suggestion that destiny includes some level of direct alignment with the Orisha that incarnates a particular person's Ori. Ifa teaches that when a child is born, the journey down the birth canal causes the Ori to forget the details of their chosen destiny. The purpose of initiation is to place the initiate in perfect alignment with their higher self, the Ipanri, in an effort to reawaken the memory of the original agreement between self and creation. To reawaken the memory of the original agreement between self and creation. Each stage of the initiation process is analogous to the stages of physical birth, and the initiation itself is a form of atunde, meaning rebirths. Atunde. Initiation can give the initiate a clear vision of personal destiny. Ipin is the spiritual substance that carries this vision. When this transformation occurs, the initiate experiences ORI-APEERE, meaning power to the eyes. The connotation of ORI-APEERE is that it can potentially elevate the consciousness of the medium to a point known as iweju, meaning mystical vision. Those who experience iweju are believed to be guided towards a deeper appreciation of self and world through the gift of seeing the hidden influences at play in the world. Ifa is based on the observation that creation is inherently benevolent. Ifa is based on the observation that creation is inherently benevolent. Those who have access to iweju, meaning mystical vision, are in a position to receive guidance and inspiration for the development of ORI-APEERE, based on a very real experience that everything in the world is interconnected. Those who have access to iweju are in a position to receive guidance and inspiration for the development of ORI-APEERE, based on a very real experience that everything in the world is interconnected. Experiencing this truth is different from understanding the idea. Experiencing this truth is different from understanding the idea. Experience brings a deep sense of knowing that makes it possible to constantly remain in an open-ended state of transformation and change. Little time is wasted with regret, shame, or jealousy because problems are handled in the moment with focus and intention. Problems are handled in the moment with focus and intention. The ORI and the IPANRI move towards longer and longer periods of alignment, giving us easier access to the altered state of consciousness called ini. The literal translation of ini is I am. I am. A deep sense of knowing that makes it possible to constantly remain in an open-ended state of transformation and change. Ifa is based on the observation that creation is inherently benevolent. Little time is wasted with regret, shame, or jealousy. Problems are handled in the moment with focus and intention. The ORI and the IPANRI move towards longer and longer periods of alignment, giving us easier access to the altered state of consciousness called ini. The literal translation of ini is I am. This suggests that possession, rather than being an intrusion from the outside, is an enhancement of something from within. This suggestion is a little misleading because after the individual connects with the inner self, the ORI-APEERE forms a bond with similar expressions of consciousness throughout creation. This suggestion is a little misleading because after the individual connects with the inner self, the ORI-APEERE forms a bond with similar expressions of consciousness throughout creation. You understand? For example, the ORI-APEERE of a passionate person might be incarnated by the same Odu that incarnates fire. Iwori-Imeji. By the same Odu that incarnates fire. Iwori-Meji. Will be mesmerized by fire and will constantly give off body heat, often described as charisma. An ORI-APEERE incarnated by the same Odu as the spirit of the ocean, Odi-Meji, would feel the need to nurture others. It is this bond that empowers the experience of ini By infusing the Ori. By infusing the Ori with the awareness of that which transcends personal experience. Transcends personal experience. In East Indian mystical tradition, there is a belief that all history, past, present, and future, is recorded in an invisible realm in what is known as the Akashic record. In Vedanta tradition and known as Olorun in Ifa. Historically, there has been two dominant views regarding the nature of destiny. One is that destiny is totally preordained and unalterable. The other is that it is undetermined and completely regulated by laws of cause and effect. Ifa takes the middle view. Destiny in Ifa cosmology is based upon the agreement between Ori and Olorun. In simple terms, this means every individual chooses their range of potential in the time between each reincarnation. Atunma. Ifa teaches that these choices are forgotten at the moment of birth, and the process of personal transformation reveals portions of that agreement as life progresses. Process of personal transformation reveals portions of that agreement as life progresses. There is a Yoruba proverb that says, Igbala kuro inoesi at iku ani pekun, meaning, initiation into the mystery of light places my foot where death ceases to exist. The place where death ceases to exist is the eternal center of Orun, called Le. The word Lele refers to the pre-existential state where all that comes into being exists in an ideal state of perfection and unity. This is the place the human Ori can touch. The experience of Lele is a glimpse at the source of creation.